ahead now. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning to all. My name is Venkat. I head the Projects and Services Division at Gestec. I've been with the company for almost now 20 years now. Had the opportunity to work with different projects, different sectors, from transportation, municipality, environmental agencies, then ports, and so on and so forth. Statistics also, yeah. So, yeah, it's been quite a journey. I think I've been with the Esri family also for the last 20 years. So my career has been in GS only for the last 20 years. So the presentation today is a little different than the others that you will see in the conference, right? So it's not too technical. At the same time, it's not non-technical, right? It's a balance between both. Yeah. And this is something which Esri has been trying to do for the last couple of years, specifically because in spite of having so many technologies and so many innovations happening in the GS end with the RGS products and so on, still people are finding it difficult to get the right recipe for success with the GS system, right? So yes, fine. There's a lot of great things happening with the tech, but still there's something which is still missing there, which is not at resonating with the top executive level or with the leadership level in the organization, which is making it more difficult for people to adopt GS more and more, right? So they started this thing called Path to Geospatial Excellence. So it's something which is like a framework from Esri. The first version of it came about 4 or 5 months ago, I would say. If you go to the website of Esri, you will see this Path to Geospatial Excellence, right? And now they're trying to sort of give this as a formal training, as well as through webinars and seminars. They want to sort of promote this, right? And we'll get into the details very soon now. Now, this is for two kinds of audience, right? So this whole session is for two types of audience. One is for organizations or customers who want to succeed with GIS and also excel in it, right? That's for the organization. So you want to have an approach by which you want to have a GIS system built successfully, and you want to sort of also evolve it in a way that you're going towards excellence. The other one is for the consultants. Consultants who are I don't know how many of you are from a consulting background. Can you just raise your hands? People, anybody from consulting background? Great, yeah. So these are also for consultants who are trying to go and coach the customers in trying to adopt this framework, right? So when you walk into an organization and then you want to coach them on or mentor them on how do you want to take them through the journey of excellence, then this is the framework that you have to look into. Okay, so with that, let's get into the topic now. So excellence. So I think we've all read about excellence. And I think if you Google it up and if you go to the dictionary, so this is the definition of excellence, right? So excellence is the pursuit of surpassing ordinary standards and consistently delivering superior quality. The path to excellence is one of continuous improvement and unwavering commitment to achieve best results, right? Now, few things stand out in this statement, correct? So first of all, surpassing ordinary standards. So excellence means you have to go beyond those normal standards that you've set for yourself, for your organization as a team. Focusing on quality. Again, the emphasis is not to compromise anything on quality, right? The quality at the leadership level, quality at the level of the people who are executing the plans, the people who are really doing the hands-on job. So the quality should be sort of as a focus item for all the different stakeholders in the organization. And then very importantly, there is a focus also for continuous improvement, right? So again, the important aspect here is it's not like, okay, you do this, you adopt this framework once at a time, you put it on the wall and that's about it. This is something which everybody has to practice, including us like vendors. We are also trying to sort of have this continuous improvement plans within the organization to have people developed over a period of time, and they have this focus to develop their job and have these improvement plans in every aspect of what they do, right? Technical and non-technical. Then unwavering commitment. This means that it's not about, okay, all these things will not happen if we don't have a commitment and dedication to make this happen. So if I want to sort of summarize all this in one simple word, it's about the mindset, right? And it's a very deep topic. So basically, it's all about the mindset that you start with. So if you want to go towards excellence, you start with the right mindset. If you have the right mindset, then everything will sort of get itself settled down properly. Yeah. So this is the excellence. Now, so from a path to geospatial excellence point of view, so you want to share? Yeah. No, please. Okay. It's okay. All right. So how does the path to geospatial excellence look like? Right. Now, there are two main areas that any organization would look into from excellence point of view. One is from the business side of it, another from the system side of it, right? And then you might be an organization who's starting out with your GS journey today, and you're trying to go or evolve yourself into or mature yourself into a better organization along the way. Or you could be anywhere in this line and you're trying to go to the next level with your geospatial capabilities. Even if you're in the even if you are on the right end of the spectrum there, where you have still a high level of maturity, still there is scope for improvement, right? So broadly, two main aspects stand out here. Your improvement or your excellence has to be built in two main areas. One is from the business side of it, another from the system side of it. And the core, the focus here is to create the value, the value and the impact of GS through these two different areas. Is this easy? It's not, right? It's like if you're an athlete and you're trying to, run a race, you'll have so many hurdles, right? So there are so many hurdles to this path to geospatial excellence. You might find resistance in terms of culture. The organization culture is such that you're not able to get things done or innovate certain things in a certain way. There's lack of data, right? So your organization doesn't, it's got the right culture, it's got the right mindset, but there's lack of data, for example. There's lack of spatial thinking. This means we have seen, okay, even if you have data, even if you have the mindset, but you don't have that approach, how to solve problems using a spatial approach, using a geographic approach, right? So this is another challenge here. Lack of training. Again, with so many things happening around us, the technology is constantly evolving. There is a need to be trained and there is a process for ever-long learning, right? So this is again an emphasis here. So these are all hurdles to the path to geospatial excellence. But okay, these are all still hurdles. Again, the framework that we're going to talk about today gives you some sort of, I would say, important aspects that you need to consider to overcome these hurdles, overcome these bottlenecks, right? Now, Esri is also trying to evolve this as we speak. This is not, again, a framework that is, okay, use it and you will be 100% successful. So the disclaimer is, yes, all the important elements are going to be there, part of this framework. But again, it's up to the individual. It's again up to the leadership. It's again up to the organization, how they will adopt it, how they will use it within their organization. Yeah. So what is geospatial excellence? Anybody? What do you think is a geospatial excellence mean? Okay, we saw what is excellence. We saw some of the let's say the hurdles. So what do you think from your perspective geospatial excellence means? Anybody? Just give let's make it interactive. What could be those factors that could contribute towards geospatial excellence? Anyone? It's okay. Sorry? Complaints of okay. It has multiple things. Okay. Start with principles, start with framework, start with roadmap, start with project plans, the business and everything. Yeah. Correct. The measurement at the end of the day. Correct. The outcomes of this. What else? What else do you think is are the factors towards geospatial excellence? Anybody? Again? Okay. So these are some of the critical factors that contribute towards a geospatial excellence, right? The first and foremost is aligning GS with the business goals and objectives to create value. Now, it's a very simple statement to make, but this is the most complex to achieve, right? It's easy to plan or think about it, but how to execute it is really the challenge. And we will see in this presentation some of the techniques or tactics of how we can sort of address this, right? So first is to ensure that your GS align with the business goals and objectives. And the whole idea behind it is to create value at the end of the day for the organization. Number two, solving the problems using a geographic approach approach and mindset. Again, there are certain patterns of use when you use the GS technology, and we'll see more of it in more details in the upcoming slides now. So how do you solve those problems using a geographic approach and a spatial thinking, right? That's key here. The third one is very obvious, but again, many organizations struggle to do it. Produce, maintain, and share consistently reliable and accurate data, right? Now we may build all the fancy applications that we want, right? So whether the mobile apps or the web application that you want to build, those are all fine. But if the data that's going to be shown on those applications are not reliable enough or not accurate enough, I don't think you're going to be having those users coming in and looking at the applications the next time around. Achieving high utilization levels of GS in business. Again, if you're going towards excellence, you have to ensure that your GS is being utilized continuously in business. Create, maintain, operate a robust GS platform using the industry best practices. Again, Esri has got a framework called the well-architected framework, through which you will be able to sort of architect the platform or architect the on-premises RGS enterprise platform in a way that it's got all the basics covered, right? From scalability, high availability, reliability, and so on and so forth, right? This is again a very important point. Knowing your GS user personas and constantly engaging with them. You have to know your users. You have to know your end users. How many times we have seen in the past that we used to create a solution or used to create an application, for example, but then we try to discover the users for it. It's something really funny, right? So you create an application and then we try to figure out who's going to use it. But we have to change the thought process completely. You have to figure out first who's the audience for your application, then start looking at it from that perspective, right? So it's a complete change in the mindset here. Then governance to monitor, assess, create policies and standards continuously to evolve GS systematically. Again, if you want to move towards excellence, without a proper governance, you will not be able to achieve it. So which means that you need to have a governing body that oversees all the work done by your editors, by your analysts, by the end users, and so on, right? So governance is an important factor here. Empowering GS teams to consistently excel and emphasize on a continuous improvement. Again, as I mentioned earlier, it's not about just having a one-time project and that's about it, right? It's always about continuous improvement and building on top of what you've done in the past. And then constantly recognize and reward the champions within your organization. Again, this is very, very important here. Now, this might sound very cliched here, but it's very important that you have to have the people who are performing, who are the champions and taking the torch with the GS to be rewarded. They have to be identified because they are the ones who will be able to articulate about the benefit of GS more and more within the organization. Okay. Stop me anytime if you want to ask any questions here. So understanding the key pillars of geospatial excellence. Now, this is the Esri's framework where they have tried to come out with 5 key pillars for achieving geospatial excellence, right? The first one on the top is the business. The second one is systems and data. If you go to the Esri website, you will not see the word data there because for them, they see it as data as being embedded part of the systems itself. Yeah, but I just try to sort of put it in here because it's still got a very important aspect to be addressed as part of the overall excellence framework here. So business, systems and data, capacity, engagement, and then in the middle of all this is the governance. So you'll probably have to have a focus on each of those areas, but then there is a governance body or a governance, let's say a framework within this whole scheme of things, which is overlooking all these different areas, what you want to address part of the geospatial excellence. Okay, now let's look at, so we saw, for example, what is excellence? What is geospatial excellence? Now let's look at how do we achieve geospatial excellence, right? So now we will go deeper into each of those different pillars and then talk about the specific pillars in there, yeah? So what is the path to geospatial excellence? Now here, the first and the foremost is for anything that you want to go in this path, you need to have a strategy. So it's called geospatial strategy, right? You started with the right geospatial strategy. A geospatial strategy is a business-oriented plan. Look for the word here. It's a business-oriented plan that defines how an organization will use GIS to achieve its goals and outcomes in the key pillars. So in each of those different pillars, you probably have to identify what are your goals, objectives, and what are those key elements that I have to achieve in each of those individual pillars here, whether it's in the business side, system side, capacity side, or in the engagement side. Now it's okay. So how do we do it, right? It's pretty simple. You have to first understand your organization as it stands today. So you go in, you try to understand, meeting with the people to figure out where do you stand today, right? And then you plan where you want to get into. So basically, you are looking at the as is situation for the organization, and then you're looking into where I want to be in the future. And then finally, you have to act on it. As simple as this. So you have to look at where you stand, the current situation, from all those different pillars, from business point of view, from a systems point of view, data point of view, from a capacity point of view, which is the talent building and so on, and from an engagement point of view, from a user side. You look at all those different aspects as it stands today, and then you look at, for example, how do you want to move towards the future, and then you create a plan of action, and then you act on it. As simple as this. Now, then the question will come now: how often should I run this, and how do I run within the organization, right? So the answer to that is the general what we adopt normally when you go and do the consulting here is we adopt it for the whole organization, right? It can be done for a specific department, but generally the geospatial strategy is better to be run for the whole organization completely, right? So we will have to meet probably with the top executive directors, the decision makers, and then or the department managers, and then develop the strategy around it. How often should I run it? What is the frequency of running this geospatial strategy? At least minimum once in a year, right? Because this is the sort of, I would say, the guideline or the compass based on which you're going to be planning your GS journey, right? Without a strategy, it's like you're trying to do some ad hoc work here and there, and it may not work for you. You'll have to have a strategy in place, ensure that you have a compass and your direction done clearly. You got the buy-in from the top management, you got the buy-in from your key stakeholders, internal and external, and then you set the direction for it, and then you move from there, right? So two things. One is it's done typically at the level of the whole organization. Number two, it's better to be run at least once in a year. Okay. Now we saw those five main pillars, right? So we saw the business, we saw the systems and data, we saw the capacity, the engagement, and then the governance. So we have saw five areas. Now, each of those specific areas, there are several elements to be looked into. And that's what we're going to be seeing right now. Okay, so these are the key pillars there. You might be surprised to see the sixth there. Actually, systems covers both here, data and systems, right? Or technology here. So again, these are all critical elements, part of every single one of those pillars. So when we as consultants, or when you are as consultants, or within the organization, you would like to go and address those different pillars, we will be coming and exploring all these different elements in here, right? From a business point of view, we will be looking at who's your sponsor, who's the person who's going to be putting the money on the table, right? Finally, the investor. I think we're all reading about it in the papers and the media and so on about the startup culture, right? Where you have to go and pitch in your idea to a investor, a venture capitalist, and then they have to look at your idea, and then probably you have to put the money on the table. It's no different within an organization. If you want to go and pitch this idea to your executive sponsor, you have to know how to present that idea, how to present that thing, right? So we will talk about the strategy and the executive sponsorship. Part of this is also several elements around the ROI investment that the sponsor has to make. But more importantly, start with the business goals and objectives of the whole organization itself. Then we look at the GS business alignment, the initiatives, prioritization of initiatives, and there are some techniques around it. We'll see in the upcoming slides now. And then looking at overall what kind of solution portfolio will fit my organization, right? So these are all the aspects around the business side. From a data and systems point of view, again, there are so many things here, right? Framework GS data, framework GS data maintenance. So when I say framework GS data, this is the data that typically I may want to use from an external source, but not necessarily that I'm going to be the one who's owning the data. A big difference is there. So let me give you an example. For example, let's say that I am an organization where I need base maps, right? The plots data and the building footprints and so on. I am not the one who's actually owning the data, but I need the data for my work, right? So the base maps or the plots data and so on, I have to probably get it from the municipalities. I have to get it from another external government entity, right? So here what I do is I have to understand that there is a distinction between what I own versus what I need to access from outside. So here I still have to create that framework for me to get that data from that external sources. Then also have a plan to create my own business data on top of that, right? So that's the business GS data, which is typically owned by the business or by the organization. Yeah. Again, in data, there's so many other elements about metadata, which is the data about the data itself. Okay, what frequency you're maintaining, your projection systems, so many things around the data itself. And then the standards. So I think, okay, each of those areas, I'm not going to go into the details because we have upcoming information about it, but I just want to highlight that all these elements, if you're able to sort of tackle it in a proper manner, part of your excellence journey, then that's your right way to move forward with your in your organization. So here, when you run this exercise, what will happen typically is that there will be some areas which will be highlighted, right? For example, in year one, you want to target a few elements part of this one because of your budgetary constraint, because of the prioritization from the business, you may not be able to target all of them at the same time. So what happens is you might be able to target a few of them in let's say in the first year. I'm just giving an example. Don't take it as a, so this is like for, let's say we ran it in one of the entities and then we found that their main idea was to focus on those key areas as a stage one. Then year two, they probably wanted to focus on a different set of elements in there. And this all comes together in the geospatial strategy and the roadmap, right? So that's the idea behind it. So you start to build a holistic picture around all those 5 key pillars, right? So you cannot look at each pillar in isolation. Every one of them, if you do certain work with the business side, you will have some impacts on the data and system side. You will have some impact on the work to be done with the people who are going to be using the system. You're going to be having the impact on the people of the administrative system, right? So every area, as you move along, you will find the relationships and interdependencies between all those different pillars. Okay, so now, as you saw that it's going to be quite challenging, right? So within an organization with so many departments, so many users, if I want to start out on this journey, so let's start with some inspirational quotes here, right? So the first one, this is from the Prime Minister of UAE, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, right? The race for excellence has no finish line, right? So this is the first one, which means that in your in your path to excellence, there is no finish line. There's a constantly continuous improvement to be planned in here. Jack Benjamin, who's the owner of Esri, the founder of Esri, he says that my definition is that geo-enlightenment is understanding the interconnectedness of things. If you're able to understand how things are relating with one another, okay, so and if I'm really able to sort of intuitively build this within me and my team, that's when I reach this geo-enlightenment state. Steve Jobs says innovation distinguishes between a leader and a follower. Again, we all have to innovate, right? With so many new changes happening there, your work dynamics are changing, technology is growing at an exponential pace. So unless we innovate, we will not be able to be a leader in your organization. Bill Gates says your most unhappy customers are your greatest source of learning. It's very true, and we have had this also our personal experience. Some customers who are really sort of complain a lot, but we understand then the need of the customer more. We understand more. We have to be patient, listen to them more, and try to see what is the real pain point behind why the customer is saying what he's saying or she is saying, right? The biggest risk is not taking any risk. So in a world that is changing quickly, the only strategy that is guaranteed to fail is not taking risks. So every aspect of what we do, a project has got its own risks. Every aspect of what you do in your organization, whether it's producing data to developing a new leader to having a new GS analyst in your organization, everything has got risk around it, right? But that has to be taken. We cannot say that I will not take the risk, I will not move forward, but it has to be a calculated one, right? The last one is from Albert Einstein, insanity. He defines insanity as doing the exact same thing over and over again, but expecting different results. This is very interesting, right? So we are doing the same process. We will continue to be having the same culture, the same mindset. Everything will be same, but we will continue to expect different results. It's not going to happen. We have to change the way we think and way we operate to come out with some different results. All right. Now, from a business point of view, let's look at some of these key areas here, right? I think we talked about it. These are some of the main aspects within the business pillar that we have to address during the geospatial strategy exercise. we will be talking to the top executives. Or if you're taking it within your organization, you should be talking to your top department managers and the business leaders there. And the setting is something like this. We will meet in a room. You bring in the leaders together. We will start brainstorming about what is their key business goals and objectives within that organization. You start from there. We don't talk about GS. We don't talk about anything about spatial or geography or anything in here. We simply want to know what is the organization's main key objectives and goals. We start from there. The brainstorming is done, and they lay out the vision and the mission for their organization. This comes from the top leadership from the companies. And then we start to look at what does the success look like for every one of those different stakeholders within the organization, right? From let's say department A, the manager has got a certain way of how he feels the success of GS will be within this business. Another department will say, okay, he sees it in a different manner. So all this will be started to record in the sessions there. These are very structured meetings. These are very well moderated because you can easily get lost in those meetings, right? So typically we do it for like a week to 2 weeks, for example, as a high level exercise. And then later on, if it's required to go into more details, we have further sessions on it. But typically this is run in a 1 to 2 week sort of a timeline here. Now, moving forward, as you do this exercise with your business leaders, your top executives, the department managers, right? Behind your mind, you should still keep those different patterns of use of GS. Now, this is one of the interesting slides from Esri, which gets lost in the amount of content that Esri produces, right? But it's very important here. This sort of generalizes the different GS patterns of use, right? Without the GS products being named here. So there are 9 different patterns of use. The first one is mapping and visualization, which we all know. It's about accessing maps, visualizing those 2D or 3D maps, the heat maps and stuff like that, right? Data management, it's all about how do you manage data. Okay, so how do you store data? How do you manage data? How do you manage a system of records and things like this? Field mobility. This is about the field workforce. So if your field inspectors or those people who are in the field are going to be collecting data, and if you want to have a way to track them and so on, so that's the field mobility side of things. Real-time monitoring. This is about real-time monitoring of live data. So if you have data coming from sensors, you have data coming from different data streams, then this is where the real-time monitoring comes into the picture. Now there are again products. I don't want to name the products now. My intention is to show the different patterns of use here. Something about analytics. Analytics is typically for the historical data. If you want to really do some sort of analysis over your historical data and then do some predictions around it, right? Then you're looking at the analytics pattern of your GSUs. Then there's design and planning, decision support systems like executive dashboards and things like this. And then there is the constant engagement for engaging with the external partners, other government agencies or other public users to engage with them. And then sharing and collaboration, which is to ensure that people are able to get access to the maps and all the apps that you're going to create within the organization in a secure manner. So these are the 9 different. So if you're thinking about a solution, imagine this. Now you start to build the picture between what they are saying from the objectives, goals, and so on, with the different patterns of use to come out with your own specific solutions in GS. Yeah. All right. I want to just request you all, just if you open your phone, you can just go to the QR code there, right? There are 4 questions if you're able to open it. Can you just open this, please? You should be able to see 4 questions in there. This is the question number 1, but you should see 4 questions in there. You're getting it? I request you all to please fill that questionnaire. Take like 2 minutes. It's very simple questions. There's like 2 or 3 options in there. Please see if you can fill those 4 questions there. Yeah. Can everyone access the link, please? Yeah. Okay. just the 4 questions. You have like there's a multiple choice questions there, right? So you have some choices there. Just pick the one. Yeah. We will review later the answers for it. Yeah. So we'll come back and see where we stand on those answers. Once you're done, just let me know. Yeah. Done. So much you want the chat? Yeah, please. If you're all done, please just can we move along? Yeah. Okay. Now the purpose of this question is because we want to, or I want to really trigger this in your mind and think about your own organization, right? And answer those questions from that perspective. And we will try to review those answers towards the end of this presentation and then see where we all stand together, right? Now, this is something very interesting. Normally, I know my organization and my department level business goals and objectives clearly. This might sound very simple, but we have seen this in certain sessions with the departments that when you go and start really drilling down into those goals and objectives, it's not very clear. So you have to really probably have that conversation with the business department leaders or the executives to come and define very clearly what are their clear goals and objectives there. Yeah. Okay. Now, this is an example when we do this executive consulting and we try to capture the business needs and outcomes. We follow this kind of a methodology, right? So the methodology something goes like this. So you have a role. So as a stakeholder, which means as a director of a company or as a department manager of a particular business, I need to have this in order to reach this outcome, right? So I divide my thing into 3 areas here. My role in the organization, what am I doing? So if I'm a director, department manager, I could be I'm still talking at the level of the business leaders there, right? So as the person playing that particular role, I need to have these things so that I can achieve this particular outcome. And here I'm trying to give you an example here, right? For example, let's say if you're talking to the building permit inspection team leader or the head of the inspection team, for example, the business need could be identify building permit violations and where these violations are happening, right? So building permit, the typical the nature of the department is to go and figure out where are the violations happening and so on. What is the business outcome? Why do they want to do this? Is because they want to minimize the number of violations happening from business point of view, right? And then there is a rating there. It's called opportunity scoring. So there's 2 important aspects to it, which is called importance and satisfaction. Here, the focus is not about the features that we are trying to create there, the product features here. We are trying to prioritize the business importance of it and look at from a high level point of view in their current situation, even though those products or solutions doesn't exist for this particular use case, how satisfied are the users when they operate this particular process here, right? So you look at it from that perspective. So this first example with the building permit team. Another one could be from the, let's say, facility management or asset management perspective. So the business need here is identify and locate, visualize assets owned, deployed, and managed by the organization. Identify old and new assets, for example, right? Why do you want to do this? The outcome of it is better accountability for all assets, to do the better capital expenses planning and to do maintenance planning. That is the real outcome of the whole exercise. Now, if you watch carefully, as you start building this, you can build in your mind the picture of where GS can fit in, correct? Immediately I start to feel that, okay, there is a possibility for me to go and have some field applications for the building inspection team to go to the field and discover which are the areas where the buildings which are violating the regulations are happening, right? So I can have a field application there. I could have a dashboard for my executives to see where the violations are happening. So now you can start to relate between how this sort of table translates more into an application, a GS application, or into solution, right? Now, when you do this kind of exercise with all the different departments, you might come out with a huge list of different kinds of business needs and requirements. How do you then prioritize it, right? That's where the the opportunity scoring comes in, where we look at both the aspect of importance and the satisfaction of the user, how he's performing at this current stage, right? And based on this, we start to create a map like this called the prioritization matrix. We will define very clearly which are the ones of high value, which are easy to create, and then go after it. Which are the ones which are of high value, which are difficult to create. Okay, we probably have to look at it in phase 2, for example. Then there could be low value based needs or low value based outcomes, which we would probably want to put it in a later phase. And especially when you have the kind of budget or luxury to have that the capability, we can have it at that time. So here, for example, in this particular case, what we discussed earlier, imagine providing the field personnel with mobile apps to support their permitting activities. This was considered as a quick win. It's very simple. You have the mobile apps, you go enable them very quickly through the RGA software, and then you can start giving it to the users to start using it immediately. It's a very quick win kind of a solution. At the same time, it's got a high value because if you're able to give the technology to the user and he's able to create the data, and that data has been put to use immediately within the organization. Provide managers with real-time updates from the field to support data-driven decisions. Now, this could be seen as a stage 2 activity, for example, right? Because in this case, the manager there of the whole field staff, he said, I want to really track the people, what they're doing on the field. I really want to see what are the movements of the people there. It's a great idea, but probably we need to focus this on the next stage of our initiative. Then share appropriate maps and information with the public. So with the collected data, I would like to go and inform the public or the other government stakeholders more about the information that I've collected, right? That maturity is already reached. This could probably be also as a next stage of the whole initiative. So if you are doing this in a systematic manner, if you're doing this in a very meticulous manner about collecting the business needs, trying to understand what kind of GA solutions might come out of this, and number 3, prioritizing them in an organized manner, then 99% at least you are having that direction to where you want to reach to. Yeah. Is this clear? Any questions so far? Okay. So this question also, I'm sure you would have answered this. There is is there a geospatial strategy within my organization? And I have a clear roadmap. So I'm sure that you would have answered this question, right? Okay. All right, then we move on to the next pillar, which is the systems and data. Now, on the systems and data side, Esri has come out with a very strong framework called the well-architected framework, right? Again, I request all of you to go and please Google this, and find this out. So this is a complete framework that has been created by Esri, where they talk about different areas of what you need to address in the at the system architecture level, right? And my colleague here, Sumoj, is also here. He's a solution architect from Gistic. So there is also a session happening in the next couple of days. I strongly urge you to attend that particular session because it will talk about various aspects of how you want to put a proper, well-architected framework for your organization, right? It will consider aspects like whether you're running a RG's online platform, on-prem platform, or a hybrid where you have a mix of both RG's online and RG's enterprise. And then it'll talk about different kinds of system patterns where you want to consume certain location services, you want to integrate with other systems, or you want to, let's say, go after real-time data, do some historical data analysis, big data analysis. How do you architect such things, right? And also look at some of the key aspects around the architecture pillars, like high availability. I want to have my RG's enterprise for high availability, scalability, reliability. So all those different factors, how do I architect it? Why are these important? Again, if you have a strong business need, if you have a strong business case, and there are users for it, you cannot afford to have a system that is very weak and it cannot serve the users. So be very careful here. So the balance here is always about the usage here, right? So if the criticality of the business use is high, then the systems and how you want to manage it and sort of monitor it also goes up. So that's the whole essence of how you want to plan for the well-architected framework. Another important consideration around the system side is about understanding the complete life cycle of how systems are being built, rolled out, operated, and monitored, right? Again, very, very crucial here. So during the planning phase, you might have some sort of a idea about what kind of system you want to acquire, both from a technology point of view as well as from a non-technical point of view in terms of what kind of people you want to run your GS with. And then you go after the budgeting, you have the procurement mechanisms in place, then you build out the whole GA system, right? So here you have the either implementers like us, or you bring in other contractors on board. You build a GA system, and then you have all the development work done, the data work's done. You deploy the whole thing on the system, and then there's a stage for continuous operation of those things, right? So wherein you have to keep monitoring your RGS enterprise system and ensuring that it's constantly being maintained properly in a healthy manner, so that it's able to deliver the results that you're intending for. Now, for all this to happen, the underlying framework is that you should also have a proper software maintenance in place. Because without the underlying vendors maintenance for the software in place, many of what we're talking about in the above is not possible. Yeah, because you will be running out of patch updates, you'll be running out of security patch updates if you're not under maintenance, and all these things are going to happen. So keep this also in mind. Now let's come to the data problem, right? So probably if you have a chance, I just want to sort of bring a little bit of humor into the whole thing. I'm sure you all heard about this Dilbert and Dogbert, right? The jokes they make around the office and so on. So this is something about the data, right? So Dogbert is the guy who's like the Dilbert's dog, and he's the manager. Okay, and then they have a conversation here. So you need a dashboard application to track your key metrics. So he says, that way you'll have more data to ignore when you make your decisions based on company politics, right? And then the manager says, will the data be accurate? No, then he'll say, no, only let's pretend that it matters, for example, right? And the other one says, for example, use the CRS database to size the market. So Dilbert says the data is wrong. The next one says, then use the SIPS database. That data is also wrong, right? Then the manager says, can you average them? Then Dilbert says, no, I can even multiply them, for example, right? So basically the idea is that the whole data issue is not just an individual's problem, right? It's a problem of the whole organization. If there is no real accountability behind the data, the entire organization is going to suffer along the way. This is something very, very, very serious here. I mean, beyond the jokes here, the whole idea is to understand the importance of having the right processes and mechanisms to have data in place within the organization. So how do you do this, right? So 5 main aspects that we normally look into is accuracy, completeness of data, reliability, relevance, and timeliness. 5 main areas have to be tackled in terms of data. Accuracy, we know that is the information correct in every detail, whether from a geographic point of view or from an attribute point of view. Completeness, how comprehensive is the information? Okay, the spatial coverage and information. So sometimes we see that, okay, in a country like UAE, you might have some data, let's say in a part of Dubai is okay. But when you come to the other part of Dubai, it's not okay. Or if you go to another city or other emirate in the country, the data is not okay, right? So the coverage is also matters here. Reliability. Does the information contradict with other trusted sources? So what are information that you're having? Does it contradict with other trusted sources coming from, let's say, from municipalities or other places? Relevance. Is the data that I'm holding and collecting and keeping in my organization, is it relevant, first of all? Is it really useful, right? Timeliness. How up to date am I keeping the data, right? What is the frequency in which I'm keeping the data up to date? So again, this is again a question that I was posed earlier about the data part. My department organization know what kind of GS data we require to own, create, and maintain, and for what purpose. Again, this looks very simple, but it's not that simple. And I'll give you an example for this. We once walked into a property developers, executive committee there. And before that, the GS department was engaging with us, and they were saying that let's convert all the utility drawings into GS, right? So this was the intention there. They said, let's go convert all the utility CAD drawings in AutoCAD and Microsoft format. Let's convert them and put it in GS. Let's create a project out of it. So we were part of the discussions we were having with the executive committee there. Then one of the business leaders there, he said, guys, hold on, what are we trying to do? We are a property developer. We take care of stuff above the ground, right? We take care of stuff of building or constructing buildings on top of the ground. Yes, utilities are important, but that's not something which we own. We just have to ensure that we get the data from Diva or from other sources and then plug it in as a GIS format directly. No need to go and take all this huge amount of data from another place and put it in here. This was the stand that he took, and it is correct stand, because for them, they were never owning the underlying utilities. They only were accessing data from another organization. So it would have been much easier for them to go request the same data from the main data owner, which in this case is the Electricity and Water Authority, get the data from them and then plug it part of their process itself, right? Rather than you trying to manage the data of another organization. So it's very important to understand the ownership of data. Yeah. So normally what we do is we will have a simple exercise done like this. It's a table. You list all the layers that you're looking for, and then you put the owner of each and every data, right? You have to say, okay, plots, who's the owner of this data? And then you also look at the process that creates the data, right? What is the workflow that creates that particular data? Then you look at also the frequency of the data update. So very simple, right? So you go make your data team and your GS team can come together, list all the different layers, understand the owner, understand the process that creates the data, and you look at the frequency of data update. Then you try to rank and classify the GS data for better understanding. So also you look at all the layers, those 5 elements that we talked about earlier, right? Relevance, accuracy, completeness, reliability, and timeliness. You try to see, for example, look at each and every layer and try to rank them like this. Now, if you do this in a very systematic way, you will come to know what is to a great extent about my quality of data. All this, why are we trying to do this, is because we want to ensure, as I said earlier, that the data that is being produced for the organizations is of high quality. Because whatever applications, whatever solutions that you want to create in the future, that may not work for you if you don't have reliable data and the process to create the reliable data. Yeah. So these are all some of the other considerations around the GS data: data collection and acquisition practices, metadata management, QA/QC practices, how do you store data, and for the organization, data archival processes. Again, very important. Sometimes, especially in our era, data starts to get aggregated so easily, right? So you need to have those practices. When do you want to archive them? How do I archive them? Should I archive them after 6 months? Should I archive them after 1 year? What do we need to do here, right? Data security and access control, regular data maintenance updates, and so on and so forth, right? So there's a bunch of other elements also around data that you need to look into. Again, the RGS information model has 2 parts to it. There is a system side of content management and there is a database management, right? The top part is the system governance, which means that if you're an RGS enterprise administrator, you will have a lot of things to manage from a content perspective, right? You have users, maps, apps, GIS services. All these are content within the RGS enterprise system. Then the actual database itself is a different thing. The geodatabase, which could be stored in the RDBMS, like Oracle or SQL Server or Postgres or whatever. This is the database side of things, right? So you need to have more from a system governance point of view and as well as from a data governance point of view. Now let's quickly look into also the engagement pillar now. Okay, the engagement is something interesting, right? Because if you don't engage with your users, right, you really don't know whether what you're producing for the audience is right or not. So one of the things that we've also observed in the past is that, as I mentioned earlier, you create an application and then you try to discover the users for it, which is not the right thing to do. You have to know whom are you creating this application for, whom are you creating the solution for. And then, even after you create that, you have to probably go in and start engaging with them constantly to understand how are they using it. Are they using it in a proper manner? Are they getting benefit out of the application or solution that we developed on top of it? Are they happy about the data? And this is something which you don't run with just 1 or 2 persons there in your organization. Whichever team is using your GS solution across the whole organization, you need to probably engage with them and collect the feedback for it. There are multiple ways of doing it, right? You can probably send in a survey questionnaire within the organization and collect data for it. You could call in the power users who are representing the user group and have a conversation with them, like in a workshop, let's say every quarterly, for example, and then ask them how do they progress with the data update and so on. So it's all about how users are adopting the GIS, how much are they advocating the use of GIS more and more, and then creating a culture within the organization that the users are at the center of the whole GS usage, right? So because without the users, you don't have a GS system in place. So the one of the reasons why Esri also brought this specific pillar is because the user personas are sort of forgotten in the whole scheme of things right now. So you have to bring back the focus back on the users. Sometimes it's not only the internal users within the organization, you might also have to engage with other government partners, private players, or university partners also. Yeah. Now on the engagement part, I just want to quickly touch upon. These are some of the roles within the organization, like executives, mobile workers, IT professionals, GS professionals, developers, and so on. Right? These are the typical kind of, let's say, the roles that you'll find in the organization. Now, Esri has got a certain way of defining the user types within the RGS enterprise, and you'll hear more of it in the next couple of days from during the conference. Right now, every one of those roles here gets converted into those different user types within the RGS to access the content within the RGS enterprise. You could be a viewer, you could be a creator, you could be a mobile worker, you could be a professional or a professional plus user, right? So that's from the system side of it. So just to understand when you engage with the users, you have to sort of map between the executives within the organization, what kind of role they play, how do they engage with the GA system, and then you try to map it to the sort of the user roles or user types from RGS in there. And that sort of creates that identity, right? Now, RGS is moving towards more and more into having a named user for every single user, which means every person who's connecting to RGS is a named user now, right? So you will know the identity of the user, what capabilities he has got as a user, and what kind of apps he has got access to. So this is all completely coming from the system side of it. Okay, again, this is the last question that I was posed. So how often do you engage with your GS end users? Almost daily, a couple of times in a week, a few times in a month, and rarely, right? So we will pause for a minute and then let's look at the survey results in here. Okay, so these are all the results coming from what we did as a survey right now in the session now. Yeah. So let's start with this one. Do you know your organization and your department level business objectives clearly? It's good to know that predominantly most of you are in a good shape in here. Yeah. Does your department organization clearly know what GS data they need to have, create, and maintain? Why? So yes, almost 70% are saying okay, 30% are a little wavering here. Yeah. But again, it's at least 3/4 are okay in this part. Is there a geospatial strategy in your organization with a clear roadmap? Again, yeah, here it's okay, I would say, but I believe this can improve because this is a place where you need to start looking at how to build your roadmap and the strategy for the future with the GS, right? How often do you engage with your GS end users? Again, it's a very important thing. Let's look at it here. So almost daily is 35%. That's great. So almost 30% of the people here are engaging with the users on a day-to-day basis. A few times in a month, okay, a couple of times in a week. Rarely is only 4%. It's good to see now some sort of engagement is happening here, right? Now, the purpose of why I wanted to share the survey is because you can do the survey also within your organization. That's the reason for it. If you run the same survey within your organization, you will be able to figure out who's using GS, who's not using GS. If they're using GS, why are they using GS for? If they're not using GS, what are the opportunities for us to go and create more GS for them, right? So this is just a very simple, a very quick way to sort of understand the usage of GS within the organization. Yeah. Okay, now let's come back to the presentation again. Couple of more pillars and we'll wrap it up now. So from a capacity point of view, now what I would like to highlight here is that now as a GS champion, or let's say the today's GS champion, is somebody who's sort of able to connect all these different aspects together, right? It's not anymore if you just know a technology and I'm just going to do my work in my own in my own place, right? I have to be able to relate all these different aspects together. I need to have some sort of database knowledge. I need to understand data analysis, business analysis. I need to understand a little bit about GS operations, solutioning. I need to have leadership qualities. I need to know about cartography and cartographic principles because that's where I'm going to sort of be able to visualize those maps. I need to have a little bit of background about architecture and then a little bit of development also, right? So you don't have to necessarily be a person who should know every one of these things, right? Or an expert in each of these things. But you should be able to connect the dots. And that's very important. If you're able to connect the dots across all these different places, then you're able to sort of bring everybody into the whole mix of things and engage with all of them to create a successful GIS. So what are the things that you need to look at from a capacity building point of view? First, you look at, first of all, from your organization, where is GIS placed? Is GIS a separate department, or GIS is within the IT, for example, or within another business department? Many times it might start that the GIS user might be within a specific department, right? And then the GIS starts to grow, and then maybe there's a separate GIS department. So you start from there. Depending on that, you start looking at, should I go and hire more people in the GIS side, or should I start to leverage other partners to engage with me on this one, and so on. And then there is a lot of training to be given here, opportunity to learn and reflect on work. Then create a culture for ever-long learning. Again, this is something which we cannot escape right now. Even as vendors, as implementers, now we are in a situation that we have to keep on learning forever, right? Attending those webinars and seminars, on-the-job training, plan for GIS and other relevant certifications, access to knowledge resources, attend the conferences, right? And then also have a career planning in place. Look at how your career has to grow from now, let's say 6 months from now, 1 year from now, 3-year roadmap, and so on. Yeah. The last is about governance. So to get all those other pillars to be sorted out properly, you need to have a governance structure in place. This is where the main idea of the governance team is to ensure they put the policies and procedures in place to ensure that they have measures, each and every one of those pillars. There should be ways to measure the success or measure the results of what's happening there. And then these are the people who try to enforce strict regulations on the other pillars in there. So why govern? First of all, to build trust, create ownership and accountability, right? Without a governance, people might start doing certain things here and there, but there's no proper ownership and accountability of what is to be done there. Create value in organization's intellectual property, secure the assets, create best practices and standards. Now, this is one of the most important things, is to create best practices and standards as a governance team so that your other teams can adopt it. So this is the typical governance-related stakeholders matrix, I would say. So you can look at the executive board or the executive management at the top. You have the management level and senior level middle management in there, and the operation level team there. So the direction should come from the top. There's a steering committee which sort of looks into those various areas about project planning, enforcing the policy itself, and so on. The policy creation is happening in the, let's say, the vision and the mission is happening in the top. The policy creation and enforcement is happening in here, and these are the people who have to adopt it and ensure that things are being followed all across the organization in there. So there are primary roles like data owner, data steward, data custodian, and these are some of the other supporting roles, like, for example, governance lead, IT and GS administrators, geodatabase administrator, and so on. So they just want to show you the different roles within the governance framework. And all these are the different kinds of data policies, data and content policies, data quality policies. I'm not going to keep naming each one of them, but you will have the slides later on. You can take it. So these are all the different kinds of policies just from a data point of view. You might have policies from a system side. You might have policies from a, let's say, from a data management training policy. You might have a policy, for example, from the overall governance itself, right? So all these policies are very important for you to take the GS to the next level. So in summary, I would say that those are the 5 main pillars, and these are all the different elements to look into to move towards the path to geospatial excellence. And if you are planning to make it for your organization, okay, your roadmap would look like something like this, right? So you will have certain areas or certain elements of the pillars highlight for year 1, certain aspects highlight for year 2, and certain other things for year 3, and so on, right? So that's the sort of the roadmap you're looking into. So other resources which you can tap into, if you go to these two websites here, there's well-architected framework and also the path to geospatial excellence. So these are the links in there. You can probably go in and get more information from that one. Yeah. So with that, thank you. Thanks a lot for being patient and attending the session. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Yeah.